Hello, everyone. So good to see you in all our Dharma spaces. Louder, please. Okay. Let's see. Well, I'm as loud as I can be, so I can project. How's that? Okay. You know, in general, when um, those of us who arrive at a seat like this, um, say, I'm really glad to see you. And I just want to say it is certainly the case today, particularly today. So my name is Seicho. My Dharma name is Seicho, and I am a senior student here at the Zendo. I live currently in the Bay Area, and I practice locally here, also at Berkeley Zen Center and with the Everyday Zen Foundation, whose guiding teacher is Norman Fisher. So right from the outset, uh, here I am, um, naming the beautiful interplay and overlap of our myriad sanghas, of the myriad spaces in which we come together to formally practice, and all the different groupings of humanity and um, as we say, rocks and rivers and the great earth. You know, we can't help but be practicing together because that is our practice to wake up together. So I wanted, particularly in this historic moment, just to pause, as you know, folks do these days, and just if you're aware, to just notice the land, the ground that you are physically located in has been stewarded by indigenous people to this place. And to just recognize the gift of that stewardship, and that many of these folks are still here. So here in the Bay Area, that's the Ohlone people. I just want to acknowledge that. Well, it's certainly been a big breath moment this week. First, holding our breath, many of us, and then the deep exhale. Um, and I am grateful for all the different venues that we've had this week, particularly at the Zendo, to be with all that. So important. And in our Sangha life, particularly the way we practice our forms and follow the schedule and all of that, particularly yesterday's Zazen Kai, and then this morning, our Sunday program, to experience a moment, a real live moment of what refuge is. And it's an urgent priority. So here we are, urgently and with a touch of ease, easing into showing up for and with one another. Now, we are always ourselves, and we aren't all necessarily on the same page on a whole lot of details, whatever, if you will, side of this election we might find ourselves. And because the stakes feel so high to so many of us, it's challenging to communicate about this. You know, in our own Village Zendo email group, we've had some lively interactions this week. And this is how it is. This is our practice. We're not shying away from that. And at the same time, it really brings up the question, which I imagine is as much in your heart as it is in mine, which is how do we care right now? And how do we communicate? What is helpful? And this question, what is helpful? It's a kind of koan, and it's been showing up everywhere I go. And taking care of the basics, right? I stop to feel and attune and connect. And in the last few days, I'm more keenly aware of how it is and how to really lean on following, for the most part, each day's schedule, whatever that might be in the midst of our lay life, taking care of what needs taken care of. And as I followed each day's schedule, I noticed also a lot of adaptation, a lot of improvisation. And we do that anyway, but just in particular ways this week. And maybe like you, I had the sense that I was checking in more with people, with my surroundings, and nowadays we're in that right now. That surroundings is not just my physical, geographic location, but as we are connecting globally, connecting in the network of mutuality with the whole universe, really, if we really check in. And locally, in my daily routine, I found myself checking in places that sometimes I check in with people that way, but it was much more intimate. So, and I wasn't planning to, like for instance, at the grocery store, or in different ways at work. Thank you. I adapted, like even right now, to speak a little louder because the computer I'm on is slightly wonky. It needs its own care, which I can't quite attend to in the moment. So, adapting. So one of the things that I do every week is I go to a couple of what are called listening circles online. I also went to a prayerful song circle. And these things just seem to appear because I appear in multiple spaces of gathering. And this is how it is. Where we focus our time and attention is where the practice shows up. And one of the things that I also noticed as a very steady practice is to notice patterns of internal and external othering. When do I really need to be in, so to speak, a bubble? And when, again, unplanned, noticing that bubble bumping up against another bubble. So this is nothing new. This is our bodhisattva activity. And I just want to share with you something that our own Enkyo Roshi wrote in her sweet little book, A Little Bit of Zen. It's sweet, but it's very direct. Before I do that, I'm going to just change the connector on this mic and see if it helps, okay? Is this any louder? Any better? Okay. So this is what Roshi has to say. Of course, we could ask her now because we all change, right? She might say it a little differently right now, but this is what she said at the time. Um, Talking about bodhisattva activity, that when we realize we aren't going to permanently fix ourselves, our loved ones, the climate, the political system, all the suffering in the world, then we no longer become discouraged, we no longer become depressed and paralyzed. Instead, we're free to act in this moment, to respond to what's in front of us, to serve the vast network of life. Our energy is around service, to be of service, to step in. We don't get discouraged because we're working with others and we're free to act within that vast network of others who are also acting. And she goes on also to talk about that this releases our energy, moves us towards more understanding, even toward those we consider our enemies, those ones we think are the demons out there. Well, that's hard. It's not easy. And so we do, of course, get discouraged in moments. Um, and and how do we support each other when that happens? Well, in one of these gatherings that I was in during a breakout group, I found myself, this was in person, and they ask you to pair with, to sit with people you don't necessarily know. And so I sat with three women in a circle, and we were supposed to speak to some prompt. But what felt live to me in that moment was something different. And you could say, took a little risk, but I invited all of us just to join hands. And to my amazement, the three women in the circle with me went for it. And what was so interesting is that for most of the time where we were supposed to be, taking turns, one person speaking, everyone else listening, we just sat and held hands. And then almost towards the end of the time allotted, the youngest woman among us burst into tears. And then she just spilled out her fears. And one of the things she cried out was, "I'm so much younger than you. This will affect my whole future. It's not fair." And then what happened is we came together and we embraced. That was it. It was a big deal uh, because it was really about showing up to not what I think is supposed to be the way to help, to respond, but to really be relating. And this is the care that we always need. I think we particularly need right now because there's a lot of spin going around. And how do we stay buoyant in the sea of spin to really recognize what is ours to attend to? So there have been various requests of Dharma people to say a word on the election, and one of the people who was invited to do that is Zenju Earthlyn Manuel, who was invited by Lion's Roar uh, this week after the election if she would offer something. And for those of you who haven't heard of her, her positioning is important. So along with being a Soto priest and teacher. She is Black, queer, and lives in New Mexico. And this is what she writes. Our shared suffering is less than 1 degree from each other. Our shared liberation must be the same. No matter who won this 2024 presidential election, 24 years into a new millennium, there is something that we all must do more than ever. We must keep faith in those around us. We must relish and cherish the relationships of family and friends, no matter their human flaws. It doesn't mean we have to suffer others' suffering, but the way to our liberation is to forge with our heat all that is broken in this country into a kind of freedom we never imagined we had the power to shape. I say this because it is only us that we have, and only us who will need to stand at the doors to protect our free communities, free spaces, free loved ones, and more, not as protectors of people only, but protectors of what has always been sacred, and that is life itself. We must value all life, even in the middle of all life not being valued. Inspiring words, but how do you and I actually do that? What is helpful? Well, fortunately, we can look to our ancestors. And we not only look to our ancestors, and in this moment, I am going to center our Zen ancestors specifically. We have many teachings that direct us to something very fundamental, which is it's not just like we're looking to our ancestors like they're back there and we can read the stories and we can get some kind of inspiration, and then we find our way by one foot in front of the other. It's that, as our beautiful koan tradition shows us, we are enacting that. Our ancestors are here now because of our practice, and their wisdom and their compassion is made real in this very moment. So, as we often speak of our ancestor Dogen Zenji, who lived in the Middle Ages, and that to study the Buddha way is to study the self. And it goes on, but basically that study is being intimate with Dogen's practice, which is made real, comes alive through us. And as I was encountering people, places, and things this week, one of our Zen women ancestors came to mind, and her name is Lingzhao. And she is a member of a wonderful family called the family of Layman. And all the members of this family are great models for us and great exemplars of how to be in our daily life and really respond freely, and also within their own family, how they interact. When I was reading the various lively contributions in our Zendo email group this week, I was reminded of the family of Layman Pang and of Lingzhao, his daughter, because they would supportively challenge one another along with going along together. And we need that sometimes. We really, there's a saying that we together bring forth the Dharma, not one person kind of doling it out. But it's really that in our interchange, we're bringing that out. So I wanted to bring here a beautiful story of Lingzhao's interaction with her dad. And it's a koan that's found, one version in this beautiful collection of koans, stories of 25 centuries of awakened women called The Hidden Lamp, which was edited by Florence Keplow and Susan Moon. And what's lovely about this book, if you don't know about it, is along with the stories that they bring forth, they also have a commentary by contemporary women teachers. So this particular one, let me just read it to you. It's from China from the 8th century. So one day, Layman Pang and his daughter Lingzhao were out selling bamboo baskets. Coming down off a bridge, the layman stumbled and fell. When Lingzhao saw this, she ran to her father's side and threw herself to the ground. "What are you doing?" cried the layman. "I saw you fall, so I'm helping," replied Lingzhao. "Luckily, no one was looking," remarked the layman. But what's going on here? Take a moment to picture that. It's kind of the opposite of what you would think. You would think, oh, let me give you a hand and you can get up. But no, I'm just going to sit here on the ground with you. And then what's this line about, luckily no one was looking? Well, to cut to the chase, they're intimate. They're really, really close. And so the helping is just to get down there. It's just to show up. It's to just attend to what and who is in front of us and trust that even though that can seem so small, like my gesture of saying, let's hold hands, how is that going to protect the most vulnerable and at risk right now? How is that going to help, when I am encountering someone who I'm flabbergasted with, how could you do that? And yet we're neighbors. We're neighbors. And we're complex. And I want to understand. I need to understand. Well, we just fall down. We fall down and we touch the ground. And one of the things that came to me when I was rereading this particular story after it came to mind, actually during zazen, was that we are entering the season soon of what's known as Rohatsu, which is the really worldwide, people gather to sit, and we'll be doing that here at the Zendo as well, to really enact. There's a teacher, Taigen Dan Layton, who calls even zazen our enactment ritual, that we are enacting the Buddha's very awakening when he sat beneath the Bodhi tree. And we are doing that, and we will be doing that, particularly coming up in a few weeks. And there's an image from that story too, which has to do with being on the ground. The Buddha is pestered, assailed, depending on the various versions of the story, by a character named Mara, who is throwing all kinds of things at him to get him off his seat. And finally, what he does is he touches the ground. And he basically says, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. He doesn't negate Mara. He doesn't fight. He holds his seat. And, importantly, he touches the ground. He says, the earth is my witness. And so if we take these, because images are really important. There's a lot of words going around these days. I'm speaking them right now. But the images are really important too. So is music, many ways of expression. But if you just
stay with me right now on this particular ground, right? And some of us are sitting on the ground, on the floor, and in chairs, our feet are touching the ground, right? And in this very moment, one of the most challenging things I find is, the risk to our very planet right now. And so if we're going to ground and we say the earth is our witness, well, the earth too is changing. The earth too is at risk. So it can't just be that physical ground. When Lingzhao gets down there, no one's looking because there's no one to look because and the ground really is the ground of being. It's the ground of groundlessness, of recognizing that all we can do, and it's everything, is to keep showing up. And one way to say that, which again our Zen ancestor Dogen said it, is continuous practice. And the continuous practice means, among other things, that our ancestors are alive right now through our practice. So it's continuous in time and in space. And he calls this circle of the way. And if you picture for yourself a circle, like picture for yourself planet Earth, every point, in that case it's a sphere, but it can be the same, that on a circle, everywhere you walk on the surface, you're equidistant from the center. So it can be helpful to picture ourselves on that circle, wherever we are, and we are always capable of being centered. And what we're centered on is caring. We live by vow. We live to wake up together. And what that is it's a path of love and service. So we're going to continue to show up, communicate, to tease out what's most important right now. And we will also plan as we will, and we'll pivot. Pivot. Thank you. Jifu has put into the chat, for those online, the sayings of Layman Pang. I want to just close with something that I encountered as a hospice chaplain this week also. I was visiting a woman bedside who very stoic, can't really speak much, dying. And earlier, when she could speak, she had talked about walking a labyrinth and how much she loved that. And so I brought in an image of that even though she was in her bed and I was sitting beside her, that we were both walking this labyrinth. And if you've ever walked a labyrinth, you appear to be moving in different directions, but you're on a circle. You're always on a circle. And you quickly realize that the destination and the journey are interwoven. And at least my experience is, feel the presence of those walking with you in an almost ineffable expression of, oh, this is our life. And so I was inviting her to walk with me on this labyrinth. And then we were together in a very full silence for a few breaths. And she hadn't moved at all. And then, to my great joy, she gently from the hospital bed reached out her hand, just like so. And I reached out my hand, just like so. And what I noticed in that moment is we were in Basho. We have a saying in Zen, when you greet me, I bow. So this is what we can continue to offer wherever we go on the circle of this great way. So take good care, everybody. Let's take care of one another. Thank you.